Welcome back to another episode of Aussie Google Earth Explorer. Today's episode is all about the Vatican City. Here it is, the Vatican City. And of course, everyone's talking about the Vatican City at the moment because the Pope Francis, has just died a couple of days ago. And everyone's saying, who's going to be the new Pope? Who's going to be the new Pope? I believe the front runner, if you look at the bookies, they're saying an Italian fella. He's going to be the next Pope. Obviously, we're in Italy here, so that would make sense. But outsider's chance, someone from the Philippines to be the next Pope. And we'll actually get into that in a little bit, just why that would make sense, why the church would choose someone from the Philippines to run the show. But here it is, mate. Here it is. This is the central part. This is the little obelisk here. You will see people talking about that obelisk. And then this is St. Peter's Basilica. In the middle, this is the biggest church here. This is the most famous sort of church in Christianity right here. And we'll do a little bit of a history lesson just on that in a second. But look, let's just have a little look around here. Vatican City is tiny, okay? It's only 110 acres wide, big, only 110 acres. So it's very, very small. It's the smallest independent state in the world, okay, by population and by physical size. So it is in Italy, but it is not governed by the Italian government, all right? It is a completely sovereign state. This place has their own, they do things by their own rule book, right? They got their own currency here. You get your own license plate. You go to the ATM, all right? The yarn is that they've got Latin instructions on the ATM. I don't know who's trying to take out $20 and needs the Latin instructions, but it is what it is, right? This is old world stuff here. There's no natural born citizens of this area. Okay, no one's born in this area. You have to be sort of, people that work here in the church, right? They become Vatican, the Vatican City residents. And actually, this place has the highest crime rates in the world per capita. Because no one lives here, because it's so small, all the pickpocketing and stuff, because it's a massive tourist area, right? The Sistine Chapel's here. Obviously, the Pope lives here. So a lot of tourists come here. So there's a lot of petty crime, basic stuff, like someone steals your wallet. So it has the highest reported crime rate per capita. And no, I'm not talking about crimes for the church. I'm not going to get into anything too dark in this video. We're just going to take a bit of a look here. But yeah, big crime rate in the world, actually. So look, a little bit of history. And you're going to have to give me a bit of rope here because I'm not a historian. This is going to be super, super basic level. Why the Vatican City came to be, okay? Why the Vatican City came to be. And just go easy on me here. Let's go. Okay, back in the day, we're in Rome, okay? So Roman Empire kicking around. This is Rome. Okay, this is Rome. There was a guy called Nero. He was a emperor of Rome. And this man, not a Christian, okay? Not a Christian. In fact, Christians, not popular back in the day, all right? I know they're popular now, but back then, not very popular. Nero, okay, there was a fire in Rome, and Nero, he's looking for someone to blame. He's looking for a scapegoat. Big fella Nero looking for a scapegoat. He chooses a gentleman called Peter. Okay, he says, you know what? It was the bloody Christians and it was Peter. They started the fire, and in fact, they did it on purpose. Let's get Peter, all right? Let's get Peter. So they got Peter, and unfortunately, Peter was killed along with a bunch of other Christians. Okay, and he became Saint Peter. And if you're a Christian or Catholic, you would believe that Saint Peter, not only was he the first pope of the Catholic Church, but he was also one of the OG 12 apostles. Okay, so disciples of Jesus. So this is Jesus's day oneers. Okay, Peter was the leader of these boys. He was probably one of the most influential and important figures in Christianity, in the history of Christianity. And he is said to be buried underneath St. Peter's Basilica, aptly named St. Peter's Basilica, okay? So he's dead, okay? This happened in about 64 AD, so a long, long time ago, all right? First bit, Christians not having much love, okay? They're not having much luck. So they're being persecuted. They're living in this area over here. And it's a couple hundred years, probably 200-300 years of not good times, okay? Not good times. But then some things started to change, all right? They started to get a little bit more popular. People looking for some religion, okay, and they're sort of jumping on board Christianity. It was a little bit after that, about 300 AD, so 313. A gentleman called Constantine, Emperor Constantine, finally he recognized Christianity as a religion. So he gave it the stamp of approval. He said, "Yep, Christians, good to go. We're going to rock with you now, okay?" And he actually built this place here, the St. Peter's Basilica, right here, where west of the River Tiber, which is just here. And he built it there on purpose because that's exactly what I said before. Apparently where St. Peter was buried. So around this time, it's gaining a lot of popularity. So a lot of Romans are starting to get on board this Christianity train. They're loving it, right? Christianity is becoming the dominant religion very slowly. Around this time, the Roman Empire fell, right? And it fell, I don't know, I'm not the best historian, but let's just say the Franks, all right, were kicking around. And they're looking for a way to sort of govern the people and be popular at the same time. And the Catholic Church has such a sway amongst the people that the Frankish king was like, all right, you scratch our back, we'll scratch yours. We'll give you land, right? And this thing called the Papal States sort of started, which is the Catholic Church was then governing all these separate areas of Rome and then wider Italy. Over time, it just became bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. It became the official religion of Rome and then Italy. And eventually, it became the most powerful force in the whole country, right? And so there's, in essence, a small amount of people gained foothold over the people of Rome and then Italy. And then if you wanted to rule this area, you had to kind of be on board with the church. So the church became more powerful than the state itself. And then they were able to govern themselves within the walls of the Vatican. And the Vatican kind of became the center of the Catholic Church. That's a terrible explanation, but it gives you the bones of how this thing actually kicked off. And today, still, it's the center of the Catholic Church. Okay, so if you're a believer in Catholicism, this is the Mecca. This is where you would come to sort of pay your respects. Mate, the Pope lives here. All right, the Pope lives here. The Pope actually lives in this little house here. This is the Pope's residence right here. This is where the Pope's at. Pope's here. But it got me thinking, right? The Catholic Church, huge church, okay? There's about, let's take it back a little bit, there's about 2.5 billion Christians in the world, all right? 2.5 billion Christians. It's the biggest religion in the world, Christianity. Second to, it goes, I'm pretty sure, first is Christians, and then after that is Muslims, and then maybe Hindu after that. I'm not 100% sure, but I know it's the biggest, right? But where do these people actually live? Because it started in Italy, okay? It started in Italy, but Italy is a small country. And Italy certainly doesn't have 2.5 billion people in it, let alone 1.3 billion people. Because there's 1.3 billion Catholics, but there's only 2.5 billion Christians. So Catholicism is the biggest denomination of the Christian belief. So here we are. This is the center of it, right? This is where it started. And let's have a look here at the top 5 places, okay, where Catholics actually live today. All right, starting off at number 5, it's Italy. We just talked about Italy, and a really high percentage of Italy is still Catholic. All right, so some guesstimates would say about 70% of this country is Catholic. Some high up into like high 80s, low 90s. And that would equate to about 45 million people, maybe up to about 50, low 50s million Catholics live in Italy, okay? A lot of Catholics in Italy because, that's where it started. It makes sense. Number 4 on the list, we're actually going to fly all the way over here to the United States. A lot of Catholics in the United States. But why is there a lot of Catholics in the United States? Well, pretty much it happened because of colonization. There's a common thread here that Catholicism has been spread through colonization, all right? You go somewhere, you bring your beliefs with you, you get everyone else on board, and that happened here in the United States. Very, very similar story everywhere else, all right? So Spain, Spanish and the French were pumping around here, and they brought Catholicism over. Also, actually, interestingly, we'll get into this in a second. Another big reason why a lot of Catholics in the United States is through immigration. So, a lot of people have immigrated here from countries in Europe, but more importantly, from Latin America. And let's just jump into that now because Latin America has a huge amount of Catholics in it, dude. Massive amount of Catholics. Um, Pope Francis, who just passed away, he was Argentinian, all right? So down here in Argentina. And it's like one of the biggest. In fact, the most Catholics in the world live down here somewhere. We'll get into that in a second. But this is a mecca, all right, of Catholics down here. Huge amount of Catholics. But let's get back to the list for a second. Number 3 on the list of most Catholics, and you would not expect this, and we'll get into this, is actually the Philippines. So in the Philippines, all right, same as we're talking about with the United States, but the Spanish were here colonizing in the 16th century, and they brought over Catholicism. And a huge amount of the Philippines is Catholic. Huge amount, man. Like 80% of the Philippines is Catholic. And I mentioned this in the start of the video, but one of the front runners to be the next pope is actually a dude from the Philippines. So, the church is trying to, I guess, well, let's just look at here, right? This area, Indonesia, this is all Muslim area, okay? So Brunei, all of this area here is all Muslim. This is one of the biggest Muslim areas in the world. And this little part in the Philippines is majority Catholic. So I guess from the church's point of view, to sort of have this central area remain Catholic politically, that might make sense. That's just me, hazard a guess. That could be a reason, right? But that's number 3 on the list. Matt, there's about 80 million Catholics in the Philippines. 80 million Catholics in the Philippines. Quite incredible. Let's just look up here. Number 2 on the list. Number 2 on the list, and we talked about this just before, is actually Mexico, dude. Mexico has so many Catholics. Same deal, all right? In the 16th century, the Spanish were cruising around and they brought Catholicism to Mexico and they embedded it in the indigenous populations. And that's a pretty common theme, right? You go somewhere and you bring your religion to the indigenous populations. And they have had a different point of view for a long time. They worship different gods and they had different beliefs. But then you have all these sort of people coming over from Europe and they're bringing money and resource, and they're also bringing, a new belief system. And it really took off in Mexico. Okay, it really took off in Mexico. Some estimates say that there could be around 85% of this country could be Catholic, which is crazy. That's like 115 million people or something are Catholic in Mexico, which is insane. I did not know that the number was that high. But it brings us to the biggest population of Mexicans, of Catholics in the world. It's Brazil. Mate, Brazil. 70% of Brazil. And man, Brazil is a huge, look at the size of Brazil. It's huge. It's one of the biggest countries in the world. It's so big, dude. It's massive. 130, some estimates, 130 million Catholics living in Brazil. That's crazy. So why they're here, same deal, right? The Portuguese, mate, colonized Brazil. And they brought they speak Portuguese in Brazil, and they brought over Catholicism in the 16th century as well. Man, 16th century, Catholicism really pumping in the 16th century, and it became the dominant religion in this area. And still to this day, 70% of this country is Catholic, which is just bananas, man. 70% of Brazil is Catholic. Unbelievable. But let's go back here. To the Vatican City in Rome. Okay, let's just fly in here. Here we are, Vatican City, and you can see it's this one here, circled by the white. Actually, where's the Colosseum at? I wonder if we could find the Colosseum. Surely it's in the center here somewhere. The Colosseum. Where would it be? Oh, here we go. Surely this is the Colosseum. Surely that's it. Yeah, nice. That's the Colosseum. Bro, Colosseum looks like ants have eaten it. Don't you reckon? That's what it looks like when you smack open an ant hill and it's all like, carved out like that. Ants have been termites. You got a termite infestation in the Colosseum. Better call pest control or the Colosseum. Anyway, Vatican City. let's cruise over here. We talked about this a little bit at the start, right? But let's just name the main parts of the Vatican City. So this is St. Peter's Basilica. And basilica just means a really important church to the Catholics. So this is Renaissance architecture at its absolute best. Ladies and gentlemen, look at this. This place is, I've never been here before, but I'm sure it's incredibly impressive in real life, right? Breathtaking sort of structure. This is where the Pope lives, right? Pope lives right here in this building. The new Pope will live here. Pope Francis lived here in this building, I believe. And this little guy here, this little thing, I think this is where the Sistine Chapel is. So the Sistine Chapel is that incredible gallery, or like museum, I guess you could call it. And the roof was painted by Michelangelo, and it has those really famous paintings with the guys like touching God's hand. That's here as well. So there's all these really, really famous parts of the Vatican City that are really popular with tourists. Really, really popular with tourists. But there's a massive cultural significance, historical significance to the Catholic Church. And as we've just discovered, 1.3 billion people around the world. So a huge amount of people, are really, really interested in what's going to happen here. And I don't know, what's the yarn about if there's white smoke? Is it white smoke? Yeah, white smoke means that they've chosen a new pope. So I think it's like all the big boys meet here, and then they decide who the next pope's going to be. But is it white smoke decides the next pope? When the white smoke comes out, then it means a new pope's been chosen. I think that's how it works. White smoke. Or maybe someone's just having a barbecue. I don't know. I wonder what happens in the Vatican City. Like, is there shops here and stuff? Because this is it here, right? This is Italy. You can see Italia, this sign here, Italia. And this is the border of the Vatican City. Like, is there Macca's in here? Like, can you get like a holy cheeseburger? Like, what's going on is there shops? Can you go to the pub? Do they have happy hour? Like, what's the go here? Like, what do you do on your day off? Do they have like little tennis court, or like what happens in the Vatican City apart from, little Catholic stuff? There's a little railroad here. Actually, I think the world's smallest railroad or something is in the Vatican. This might be it. Just because it's a physical, like say it starts here and then it ends here. That technically is the world's smallest railroad because it goes through one country, and that's the size of it there. But you can see, actually, this is kind of cool. It has these walls around the whole thing. It has these walls around it. Kind of like medieval castle sort of thing. Bro, they should get a moat. They should get a moat to protect the Vatican City. I don't know what this was, but when I was a kid, moats were like the holy grail of protecting an area. Do you remember building a moat? Man, I thought a moat was the most impenetrable thing of all time. Moats with crocodiles in them. I'll put a moat around any structure as a kid. I thought impenetrable. There's no way you can get over this moat. Moats, bring back a moat, man. I want to see someone's big house. Like, imagine you just look at over here. Like, there's got to be some big mansions over here. Like, what's this place here? What's this? This looks like an interesting structure. Maybe not. Well, let's just pretend, right? Let's just pretend I own this house here. I'm putting a moat around this bad boy. Oh, there is kind of a moat. Oh, no, it's not. No, that's not a moat. But it could be. If that was filled with water, that could be a moat. Bring back the moat. Bring back the moat. 2025 year of the moat. Anyway, that's it. Vatican City. I think that's enough. Enough dribbling about the Vatican City. Smallest city in the world. Smallest country in the world. Home of Catholicism. That's where the Pope lives. That's where the Sistine Chapel is. This is St. Peter's Basilica. And look, I hope you enjoyed that video. I'll catch you on the next one. See ya.